And again, in the end, it's been up to the Italians to drive things along, despite the Dutch pulling things back, the Germans pulling things back. When they all got together, the Italians were straight on the front again, dictating the pace.
Yes, well, certainly it's been a really exciting event in the last 2 hours where we've been off air, really, and we as we went to go off air, we see the Dutch were riding for a number of laps there, and it took them a long time to close it down, but immediately there was another group of about 20 riders who went away, and there was a lot of big names. Koenig was in there, and it was a difficult one once again, but it was really the Australians also gave a big hand out there. They put a few riders in the front to close it down, but it's been a difficult race and a lot of action, from well before halfway into this race, and it's starting to pay the price. A lot of riders having difficulty on the climbs. We've seen the rear of the group that have been spat out the rear there, yeah. And we still have, as you said, we're on our 4th lap, so the next time they come through, 3 more laps to go, which is almost 60 kilometers. There's still a long ways in this race, and a lot of riders feeling the pressure, so it's going to be an interesting final. I think this group is definitely going to break down to a much smaller group in the end, because they have really done the racing today.
Jurgen van Goulen's right at the front now. This is Fabian Cancellara. We saw Cancellara sitting in the bunch just a minute or two ago. Jurgen van Goulen is the man on the front of everything, and Cancellara is pushing. On the left-hand side of your screen for Spain, Manuel Beltran, Chavanel at the front for France. Van Goulen was at the front. It's just taking a wee breather. On the right-hand side for Norway, you could see Thor Uzoft in the middle of your shot. Carsten Kroon was very active a little earlier. You're right, though, Sean, that it has been absolutely fascinating in the last 2 hours while you've been away, and when the Dutch had really done as much as they could and were not making any inroads, the Australians came and took it on the front. Scott Davis doing enormous turns on the front with Matt Hayman and William Walker, and dragging it back and back and back. I must presume for, well, they've got 2 cards to play, haven't they? They've got Cadel Evans, if he has the strength, if he has the fitness, and still has the form in his legs, but also Alan Davis, who's one of those sprinters who could climb a little better than some of the others, and it was looking as though they were trying to get it back together for possibly that scenario.
Yes, well, that I think definitely is the case, and they had the other Davis up there, but it wasn't suiting them, and it definitely wasn't the car they wanted to play, and they decided to pull it back. And I presume, yes, for Cadel Evans in the end, and if it comes down to a sprint, of course, Davis. Certainly, a chance. He's a very good sprinter. So they've controlled the race, and they've certainly done their job here. But again, a few of the riders have paid the price of that effort, and that's the same for the Dutch team as well. They have lost a few of the riders. We see them Bakker, who was doing a lot of pulling on the front. He's paid the price for it. There's also a few of the Dutch riders, Koers Moorhout, of course, who's a very strong rider. We see him in the Vuelta, doing a huge amount of work for his race, for the race leader Menchov. He's also pulled out of the race. So a lot of riders, having to ride that early, well, it's impossible to get to the finish, and they've thrown the towel in the last 2 laps.
Yeah, some fairly big names gone out already. Gerrit Glomster of Austria. His teammate Christian Pfaffenberg has been on the front doing an awful lot of work. People we saw early on, like Zolder from Serbia, he went out fairly early. Lars Bak, the Dane, is out as well. Canada's Cameron Evans has gone. Juan Jose Hodo from Argentina has disappeared. Massimiliano Riccesi, the other of the sprinters from Argentina, has disappeared. Perez Arango, who's in the early break, has gone. Robert Hunter has gone. That's surprising. Zabriskie is out. Mats Kalstad from Norway, one of their only 3 riders, has gone. We've mentioned Koers Moorhout, Christian Puus and Laurent Didier from Luxembourg have also gone. So the Schlecks by themselves now. Marzio Bruggen, I'm not surprised. He's done a tremendous amount of work. He's out. Trent Lowe has gone, as has Matthew Hayman. They did a lot of work. Matt Hayman did a lot, but still William Walker in there, and still Scott Davis. They've been working very hard indeed. Pogovny, who we saw, Ruslan Pogovny, who was on the break for a long time, he has retired as well. Mikhailo Kalyakov from the Ukraine is the other man out from there. I mean, there's a whole huge list of them, but not worth going through now. It's the Italians at the front of the race, holding station. The first non-Italian rider in that little train is Tor Ruzoft. And it's been fascinating to watch them being reeled in bit by bit by bit. There were times when I thought the Germans were going to get a little bit worried. Stefan Schumacher looking very nervous, sitting behind the Australians, just willing them on to do something. Alessandro Bertolini at the front is absolutely mighty today. He's been a tremendous worker for the Italians. Sitting behind him is Alessandro Ballan. There was a situation, Sean, a little earlier where two Lamprey riders were up in the breakaway, and those were the only two Italians there. And Ballan now forging off by himself from the front of this group. We've seen him do work in the last year in the closing laps of the race, and he's a very dangerous man to let go because they've got so many cards they can play, the Italians.
Yes, it's certainly the case, and it's what we talked about in the earlier part of our program. They have a lot of potential winners here, and they've certainly contributed a lot to the race. And when you talk about Bruce again, he's done a huge amount of work earlier on, and that's the way it goes. We were speculating that they'd have the earlier guys, the domestiques, who would take up the work earlier if there had to be something to be done, and that was the case. And now we're in the into the final, and of course they still have a lot of riders. We see Rebel in there, Cunego there, we see him sitting, Ballan of course, Bettini I haven't seen for quite a while, but he's surely in that group and he hasn't shown himself at all. And that's the way you've got to do it here. If you have a team which is controlling up front, and if there's attacks going, as we see here with Ballan going with the riders that are going to go in the attack, you can't afford to do that and just sit there in the group and wait for the very final, and that is maybe what Bettini is doing. And Freire, of course, well, we haven't seen him all day, but he's definitely in there, and they've got an easy ride actually, the Spanish team, because they haven't been doing anything. They've been following men up in the breaks and the attacks, and always at least 2-3 men, even 4 men in the big one of over 40 riders. So they still have quite a few riders in here to take control of the race in the end. So it is definitely going to be an interesting final.
All right, at the back here, it looks an awful lot like Fabian Cancellara, just trying to hang on in there. And moving up past Philip Deignan, in fact, from Ireland, who's blowing hard now, thinking I've just got to stick in there and see how long I can go. Well, as everything's strung out now and more work coming on the front, it's looks like Tommy, is it? Hunched over the bars, Faulkner at the head of the race now. And it's going to be a mad last 3 laps, there's no doubt about that. The weather's been absolutely fantastic, and finally they've got the brakes under control. There's some very dangerous men in the brakes earlier on, but Alessandro Ballan, Cunego brought back. And as you say, Sean, that the Spaniards getting a pretty easy ride. I mean, Oscar Freire has been sitting at the head of the group on the far left-hand side of our screen when you see him most of the time, doing very little work indeed. Actually, that looks like Turpin. It looks like Ludovic Turpin, in fact, rather than Faulkner with his head down on the bars. But difficult to tell, but there we are. That is Ludovic Turpin, and likes a bit of a dig. Turpin, one of the riders who secured his place in this French squad by his participation in the Vuelta and a generally aggressive riding style.
Turpin, he's been up in the moves earlier on. He was in that big group of over 40 riders with Goubert. So he's certainly been quite aggressive and been in the action a lot, and prepared to have a good dig here. And I think the tactic of the French team, they have to try something like this in in these final laps, because if they wait really for the last two laps, the last lap, it's going to be majorly difficult for any of them to do anything, because they haven't got the rider who can do something in the sprint. They haven't got that explosive rider, so it certainly looks like the tactic is they're going to try and open up the race and try and get a break form on the front once again.
Turbo being brought back in then by the rest of the peloton. Nobody being allowed to get away at the moment. It's around the roundabout again and up the little drag towards Feuerbach at the end of this lap, and then they swing hard right and climb for about 3 kilometers. And certainly, Sean, the pace has been high enough to make everybody begin to suffer. I mean, it's with the average speeds have been 40 plus to start with, and still now we're on nearly 39 kilometers an hour as they drag things back in. And on this circuit, at this time of the race, that's hurting.
Yes, it certainly is. And when you look at the earlier laps, they were doing the average of around just a little bit over 40 and a half kilometers average. It's quite fast in the earlier part of the race, and it's definitely going to tell. And we can see that before we went to our break earlier on, the way they were riding and the way the attacking was going. It's really made riders suffer, and we can see there at the rear of the bunch. We see Cancellara with Philip Dyton really suffered, and Cancellara just clawing his way back in again. And a lot of very good riders having difficulty following here, and it's going to be the case. And for the moment, they're not really going at it at full at 100%. But when they start going in the last 2-3 laps, it will certainly, the back door, we will see riders just going out there rapidly.
Certainly will. The Russians have been fairly active on the front as well. Both the Fimkin brothers, Alexander and Vladimir, up towards the front. We've not seen hide nor hair of Vladimir Gusev or Kolobnev towards the front. Maybe some of these guys really suffering. Menchov, no, not seen him. He's not been up towards the front, biding their time, some of these guys. It's the one-day specialist, the classic specialists, the Ardennes classic specialists, who are that sort of rider who think they can gain most from this particular course. But there's some very big names still in it. We've seen Cadel Evans come towards the front at certain points. Now we can't see Oscar Ferreira, but he has been there. Thomas Dekker has managed to get back into this group now. As you can see, he's stuffing an energy gel or a bar into his mouth. Schumacher, well, he would be one of my favorites for today, but he's looking very nervous, and he's looked very nervous for a long time. Fabian Wegman between the shoulders of the two Spaniards, Joaquim Rodriguez on the right-hand side, and Alejandro Verde on the left-hand side. Also Carlos Barredo up towards the front, and Manuel Beltran. So 1, 2, 3, 4 Spaniards right at the front. 1, 2, 3, 4 Australians on the right-hand side of your screen. A Norwegian right in the middle, Tor Uzoft. Just the pace knocked off a weeny touch at the moment, Sean. They've just taken the throttle back a little bit.
Yes, I think it's the calm before the storm actually at the moment, and we can see up front there the Italians are still rolling it along, but not really giving it 100%, and just waiting and trying to get as far as possible into the race, I presume, and just hopefully they can control that a bit more towards the end. But certainly, it is slow down. We can see that group, but the overhead shot we got on the main group. We can see is there 50 riders there in that group, 55 riders. It's really been taken down a lot in the last number of laps, and it's going to be much more the case, I think, when they start going for again, when they really start racing here in the final. It will just blow to pieces, because they've had a hard day and they've really put in a big effort, everybody.
It's been very hard, isn't it? It's been a lot harder than I possibly anticipated, seeing the racing in the last couple of days. They've gone for it fairly early on, and the thing is, we've had 2 breaks, haven't we, Sean, with a big amount of men in them, and both of them have had dangerous men in them, so everybody's had to work hard, either to stay away or to drag it back.
Yes, well, of course, up front, we had always dangerous men, and a number of them, and there was always prepared to ride as well, a number of riders, and when you take that group of 42 riders, there was quite a lot of the riders were prepared to do a lot of pulling up front, and it was really going, at almost full bore out there, and the chasers, of course, the Dutch team, who had to give a huge effort to close it down, and then the Australian team also, they're also going to pay the price. So it's going to take effect on everybody, and the speed of the race in the earlier part, that tells in the end. And when you have a race of 270 kilometres almost on this sort of circuit, it's definitely going to create sore legs and very tired bodies in the end.
Certainly is. Both the Fimkins up to the front once more. You can see it looks like Andy Schleck, in fact, from Luxembourg, about 6 or 7 back. Cancellara making it towards the front again. Kodal Arvidsson from Norway, 1, 2, 3 back at the moment. Still Alessandro Bertolini, who's buried himself today. He really has. He's got in one of the breaks as well. And they're really strung out, but beginning, as you can see with the graphic, beginning very slightly to get themselves back into one big group. Now maybe that's a function of everything just calming down a wee little bit. So at the moment it's Bertolini, followed by Marcus Burkhardt, who's in one of the breaks as well. Kodal Arvidsson is next. Then looks like Cunego on the left-hand side for Italy. Then a number of Australians a bit further back, including Simon Gerrans, who is in the break as well, and climbing well. Simon Gerrans, he looked very comfortable indeed. That was very good to see. He was in the breakaway that his teammates were pulling back, but even so, he was climbing without any problem at all. Fokker, in fact, we just passed him right at the back of the group. David Miller working his way up towards the front. Not much side of Mark Cavendish. We've seen him go through a couple of times. Whether he's still about in this group is difficult to tell. Roger Hammond was certainly there. You can see Miller, the big tall guy, right in the middle towards the front. Cavendish being brought here for experience, because it is true, isn't it, Sean, that the World Championship is a very peculiar race, very peculiar one-day race, the way the structure works for national teams, the way that can be in the past divided loyalties. There's a different set of politics interplay goes on.
Yes, well, of course, it's a big change, and the national team is the big thing. Of course, it's a major change for those riders, because all year they're racing in the 3 teams, and then suddenly, they're in a team with riders that are racing against the opposition really during the season. But that's more so for the bigger teams. For the smaller teams, that's not the problem. But yeah, the World Championships tactic here, it's special, and you never know what's exactly the tactic the teams are going to work. If you take the big teams, are they going to ride for one rider, or are they going to play a lot of cards? And that's something you have to wait and see in the race. But the World Championships, it's really about distance and about being able to last that long distance on a lap, on laps. Of course, it makes it more difficult again. So it's really like a classic race, and the riders we see a lot of the time in the end of the World Championships, they're the classic riders. They can be riders who maybe do Tour of Flanders, Paris-Roubaix, which is more flat Atlantic, but also Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and it's the ones who can do a Liège-Bastogne-Liège and Amstel Gold. They're the ones I think we will see that should be shining in the end today. And so Schumacher, for example, as you talked about, he's a rider who's on home soil as such, and he's a winner of the Amstel Gold race. So it'd be interesting to see what way he's in the end, because he's going to have to attack. He's not going to wait for the sprint, because he's not a good enough sprinter against the likes of Bettini, and certainly not against a Ferreira, and quite a few others. He would not be able to get the place on the podium, not alone to talk about winning.
Well, all these guys we're talking about are classics winners. Really think about Balan, the Tour of Flanders winner, Schumacher, as you've said, Amstel Gold winner, Valverde, well, he's done the double, Rebellin, who's in here, has done the triple. All these guys can get to the end of a long race. There is a Jens Vogt. He's already stated this is going to be his last time in the jersey of Germany. Gerhard Cielek next to him. That's good for him. Cielek, the under-23 champion from Salzburg last year, is a very powerful rider, and he can get up the hills as well. Now, they'll like to get him there. They've got Jens Vogt with him, just to keep him out of trouble. We haven't seen, although I'm sure he's probably in the group, is Eric Zabel. There is Freire sitting behind. See David Miller? Now just to his left is Oscar Freire. He's going behind his rear wheel, and Bettini right behind him as well, and Thor Uzoft right behind that, and Karel Evans right behind him. So it's an interesting combination. At the back there, Gilbert just ahead of Miller. You can see the quality of field that is still here. And I have to say, Tor Uzov looks as though he's beginning to suffer a little bit, as does Carlos Barredo, sitting on the wheel of David Miller. And Miller looking fairly comfortable. Pipo Pozzato just on the left shoulder of Miller. Here we are, Bertolini still doing the job. Arvidsson for Norway. Beltran looking like he's gritting his teeth in there as well. Is that Erkki Putsev on the far right-hand side behind Rebelin. The pace is still pretty hot as they come into the next turn around here. 229 kilometers they will have finished by the time they reach the top of this hill. Vladimir Karpets, you just saw, and Bertolini is still putting the hurt on. It's Bertolini, Ciolek, Arvidsson, and then Cunego. That is it as they go over the line at 229.2 kilometers. Just 3 laps to go here in Stuttgart.
Hire, your home appliance supplier.
Suzuki, way of life. CD, cycling shoes.
What if your entire business could learn to minimize risks? Well, off the course anyway, because change happens. Zurich.
Within the miles.
Air France, making the sky the best place on earth.
Complete Premiership and European football coverage of all the matches with live comments and scoring. Don't miss the new football season at eurosport.yahoo.co.uk.
CD, cycling shoes.
Back here with the road race live in Stuttgart, just the 2 to go. And things really holding up. Fabian Wegmann on the far side of your shot, now at the head of the race. Both the Estonians, Reni Mandri and Erkki Putsev, have managed to make this distance so far. Remember, still got a way to go, 2 laps. There's Tor Uzov for Norway, right the way at the front. And it's definitely, the pace is upping and upping and up. A big group, just over 80 riders in this group. They managed to all get back together, and slowly they've wound up the pace. Gerhard Ciolek, last year's under-23 world champion, is in this group. He's got Jens Vogt on his shoulder, looking after him, making sure he's okay. We haven't seen him, but the intermediate lap scores tell us Erik Zabel is in this group as well, and we'd have been a bit surprised if he wasn't, but he is there. Gerrans from Australia, Evans from Australia there, Cancellara and Elmiger from Switzerland. Both the Efimkin brothers are in here as well. Vladimir and Alexander. Cunego from Italy. Bertolini is doing all the work on the front. Marcus Burkhardt, the German. Two Belgians at least, Maxime Monfort and Philippe Gilbert, both in this group. Rebelin, Sergei Lagutin, the Uzbek, is in there. They're an interesting color. You'll see them. It's sort of light blue, white, and green. Sebastian Langeveld from the Netherlands, Thomas Dekker and Michael Bogert, both in this group. It's becoming a very select bunch indeed. Britain's David Miller is in there, Sylvain Chavanel for France, Alexander Kolobnev, the Russian here. Tor Uzoft, we've already seen as they go into the Handweg for the next time around. Oscar Freire is here for Spain. Rodriguez is here as well. We've seen Valverde in the group. So three big Spaniards. Frank Schleck all by himself at the moment at the front, and Andy a little bit further back. So the two Schleck brothers have made this group, and it's Tor Uzoft pushing away at the front at the moment, and Bertolini on the far right hand side. I'm not surprised that he's beginning to slow down a weeny bit, looking across to see where Paolo Bettini is. There he is, Bertolini in the middle. Fabian Wegmann for Germany. Oh, some real suffering going on here now. There is Paolo Bettini. Thomas Dekker is on his wheel. It looks like Frank Schleck just behind. People Pizzato in there as well. One of the Olympians. You will forgive me if I can't tell the difference. They are twins. David Miller. Eric Zabel right in the middle of the shot. He's a very canny customer. Martin Elmiger sitting on the wheel of Eric Zabel there, Pipo Pozzato on the left-hand side. So the two team captains from Italy, Pozzato and Bettini, are still right at the front. The Croatian suffering in the back here is Matija Pazina. And there's a look of anticipation and a little bit of wariness on all the riders. Now he's off the front, is it? Yes, he is. Didn't see him go off the front. Assumed he was off the back. Silly me. Sardinian flag there flying. There's a number of riders beginning to be tailed off. Marcus Burkhardt, who's done an awful lot of work on the front, the tall German, just slipping backwards a little bit, as is Jens Vogt. Oh, that's but there's definitely anticipation in people's faces now, Sean, isn't there? If not a little bit of concern, and the tension is rising.
Yes, it certainly is, and you know, anybody is starting to weaken. They're getting caught out, and we can see it here. The likes of Boyd, you know, he's just certainly run out of power, and it's going to be, you know, a strong man's race up front now, and but it's still quite a big group, and I was, you know, calculating earlier on. I said about 50, but you know, there's over 80 riders all the time, which is quite a very big group. And also, my apologies, I think I was saying there was 3 laps to go, but it's actually 2 laps to go. So the last time they went through it was with 2 laps to go. So we're really into the final, and you know, it's going to be just attack after attack, and now it's going to be a situation who's going to, you know, try and keep it together and who wants to go in the attack. So there's, you know, the 2 different tactics going to be worked, and as we talked about, the teams who've got sprinters who have a chance of taking a victory here, and they're going to start, you know, closing down, blocking the race really up front, and the ones who haven't got anything to take anything in the sprint are going to try and go in the attack, as we see a lot of very big riders coming out of the front.
This is fascinating. Look, Rebelin, Evans, Beltran, Elmiger, Menchov right at the back. He's the guy who came across to Gzvena, the Croatian, who's suddenly been outclassed. He's going to hang into this group, but Rebelin in the front, Evans pushing on, Beltran is right behind him, then Elmiger, the Swiss, former Swiss champion in that Swiss jersey, then Denis Menchov, winner of the Vuelta not more than a week ago. God, this is absolutely fascinating on the second to last lap, and I'm quite sure who the Dutchman has come across to, but they've all come back together.
Looks like Thomas Dekker actually, and he's been, you know, there around the front. He's just hovering there for most of the day really. We've seen a lot of him, but he's certainly one of the protected riders on the Dutch team with Bogart, so he very much alert there, and when that move was slipping away a little bit, he was, you know, reacted immediately and got across to it.
And Sandro Bertolini right at the back now with it looks like Arvidsson. That group just pushing away at the top of the hard veg. I think just testing a few legs to see who's got a little bit of power left and whether anybody was prepared to shut things down. But it was Menchov who came across to the Croatian. Zina, as they go onto this bottom loop of the course. They'll be rising up through the Birkenkopf in a minute, but this is a long, sinuous downhill, totally bone dry today. It's been beautiful, beautiful weather. And off the front now goes Dekker. Well, certainly the Dutch have had to work very, very hard indeed to drag things back. I'm not sure it is Dekker, actually, is it? I don't think it is. Looking at, we have the sun in our eyes, and it's a little bit difficult to see as the sun drops down below the stands again. We've gone from our left, right the way around to our right, and sitting here at the start-finish line, it's a lot warmer than it has been, but it does cause a few problems sometimes. The Dutch have had to work very hard. Thomas Dekker, you said one of the protected riders, Sean. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the protected rider. I mean, Merkel Bogart is another guy, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if it is Dekker who is the man for the Dutch. He seemed to be sitting on the back all the time.
Yes, well, he was sitting in there, and you know, he certainly did not do any of the contribution when they were doing the chasing very early on at the halfway stage of the race. But you know, I think certainly Dekker also will be allowed to do his own race, and if it comes down to the end, we can certainly see Dekker having a go, because he has to attack as well, because in the sprint he's not going to be in there with.
Well, now the Belarusian Konstantin Suitsu, a good rider. We've seen him in breaks early on in the World Championship a couple of years ago. He was in the break, I think, in the under-23s then, back in Madrid. But that was early on in the race, and this is a different ball game now as they come through the feed zone. He's decided to go out a little bit, push the pace a wee bit, try and take advantage of the fact that everybody's going to be slowing down. It's not so much an attack, he's done it beforehand, but sort of unwritten rule, you don't attack in feed areas, but he's got through beforehand, and just pushing on the pedals a little harder than everybody else. That's the long and short of it. And Suitsu just out by himself. That's a very difficult place to be at this stage of the game, Sean. I don't think anybody's going to let that last for very long. It's just going to get swallowed up almost immediately.
Well, you know, there's maybe a method in these madness, if you can call it that. Get out when there's a little bit of a slowdown as you go through the feeding station. But you know, on a race like this with laps all the time, 14 laps, the feeding station, you know, you can attack at any time. Really, it's more so when you're in a stage race and when you have just the one feeding station during the day. But you know, to get out here and hopefully the riders come across to you, that's sometimes a tactic. If you're not feeding up to it on the steep lines, if you feel, you know, you're a little bit under pressure, and when the big guns start going, it's going to be difficult to match them and to follow them. The best, you know, tactic then option is to try and get away out of the front when there's a bit of a slowdown, a little bit of a lull, and hopefully the riders come across to you. And if there's a bit of rivalry, a bit of marking between the teams, you never know what can happen.
Eric Zabel, just you see the top of his head there. Behind him in the blue helmet is Peric Federigo, and the orange helmet with the Venezuelan top is Unai Echeverria. In this group, Elmiger, we've just gone past that. The man there, 178. Eric Zabel right in the middle. There's been a huge amount of talk about Eric Zabel's participation in this World Championships. In fact, there's no point in talking about it again. It's just the fact that it's been a controversial subject here in Germany. Rebellin pushing on. He's got, looks like Gustav Erik Larsson behind him from Sweden. And then Joaquim Rodriguez, I would think, and Alexander Kolobnev, it appears to me, from Russia. So Rebellin really gritting his teeth, looking over his shoulders, and that is hurting. That is hurting. This is the hill that we were talking about earlier. That's a long, big gear climb, and we've got Joaquim Rodriguez now. as well as Gustav Erglas and Thomas Decker, Kolobnev. Kolobnev trying to get onto the wheel of Rebelin, and there he is. He's a strong man as well. But the Russians certainly have more of a game plan than they've had maybe in last few years. They're playing more of an active part here than certainly they were in the last 2 years.
Yes, well, certainly, they've got the riders, and they're performing here. And if you've got riders on form, well, then you can do that. They've always had a number of riders here, but maybe in the final not as prominent as this year. But they certainly are being very much today in the breaks and to the fore of the bunch a lot. We've seen the jerseys there, and you realise when you're looking for the jerseys between the Italian jersey and their jersey, it's difficult to pick it out. So yes, we have noticed them there, and certainly up front there they riding very well and very impressive at the moment.
This is Robert Gessing here, who's been out in 2 breaks today. Both of them are really chasing hard to try and stay on. That is the Russian jersey. You can see the flashes down the side, very difficult to see from head on. The Italian with them is David Rebelin. It's Kolobnev plunging down now towards the underpass. He swings hard left now. There we go, and down this slope with the new tarmac on it to the bottom. Hangs a hard right, a sweeping right-hander with a brick wall on the left, and then back, plunging back through the Birkenkopf into town, over some tram lines, around a couple of roundabouts, then a little drag, which we saw yesterday. Lars Boom attacked on and really destroyed people behind when he went. In the last roundabout of the day, they hang a hard right and then up to that little climb, and then plunge down into Fürnbach. With 3 kilometers to go, it's a drag all the way up. There's no respite really on this circuit. There are some downers, but you've got to concentrate. There's no long, straight, flat bits to drag things back. It's a style of racing that, as Sean said, really suits the classics riders.
And certainly when they're going at this rate, there's certainly no respite, because even on the flatter sections you're on the limit. And we can see here with our 2 leaders, Kolobnev, Rebelin, another rider trying to come across on his own, and then 4 riders and the front of that of the main bunch. So certainly on the limit at the moment, and on the flatter sections you're just totally giving it 100%. And we can see here a big battle behind trying to make this gap. But these 2 riders are impressive, because they went away on a difficult part of the race. When they go away on a climb, that tells you they're feeling good, they have the strength. Where when the guy goes away on the descent of the flatter path, and a little bit of an easier let up, you just say to yourself, well, is he just trying to sneak away when the speed is slowing down? But certainly the 2 riders, Rebelin, Kolobnev, are looking very impressive on that last climb.
They are indeed. Rebelin, who tried to become an Argentinian a couple of years ago because Franco Ballerini wouldn't pick him for the Italian squad. The Squadra Azzurri is now on the front. Last year, he did a sterling job along with Alessandro Ballan in setting up Paolo Bettini for the win. And although he's doing a little bit on the front, I wonder what the earpiece is saying to him, because behind we still have the 2 team captains, Filippo Pozzato and Bettini. These 2 are away. Kolobnev is a very strong man, and I think it's Joaquim Rodriguez, the Spaniard, trying to come across to these 2, but with little success so far.
Allianz offers financial solutions for life's important moments. Maybe it's the moment you plan your future together, when you want your investments to work as hard as you do, or the moment you want to make sure they're both taken care of. Since 1890, we've supported people through life's moments. Whatever your moment, Allianz gives you the confidence you need. Financial solutions from A to Z. Allianz.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are getting ready to land.
Within the miles
Please return to your seat and make sure your carry-on bags
that
are stored in the
lie
overhead
between
compartment.
us. Away with the sea.
Air France.
If you think you've seen every shade of blue, every shade of orange, every shade of green, come to Estoril. Estoril, one place, 1,000 sensations in Portugal.
Hire, your home appliance supplier.
Live pictures here in the closing stages of the men's elite road race here in Stuttgart. 2 men are away, David Rebellin and Alexander Kolobnev. Rebellin just having a little dig in. Kolobnev coming straight over to him and straight past him and pushing things on. And Rebellin is in one of those situations where at the moment he's contributing to this, but not wholehearted, not 100%. Kolobnev doing an awful lot of work. Between them, they're working quite well, and a very delicate balancing act for David Rebellin here, because their game plan for the Italians would always have been for Bettini or Pozzato. Do you think so, or they're quite happy to let Rebellin go up the road?
Well, I think yes, they're going to play the card Rebellin here, and we can see on the front of the bunch there's definitely a slowdown. One of the Australian riders, I think, started riding on the front actually and was just allowed to pull away very gradually. So certainly quite a big slowdown in the main bunch. And we could see one of the Italian riders, he was talking there to the team director, he's listening to his earpiece. So I think they're calculating at the moment, is it best to leave Rebellin up there? And what did they do? They cannot start chasing Rebellin, and Rebellin was the one who attacked, of course. So he's definitely feeling in good shape, and in a sprint, he's a very good sprinter in a small group. In a two-man sprint, I think he's a very good chance if it goes into a final sprint here between the two of them.
Well, coming towards the end of his career, not the end of it, but he's getting on the back end of the career certainly, and a triple winner, of course, in the classics: Amstel Gold, Flèche Wallonne, and Liège. Amstel Gold. And behind this, they're just not quite organised enough. It looks from that overhead shot with the white shirts coming to the front. I wonder if the Australians are again coming towards the front. It was Matthew Lloyd who was allowed to try and pull things along, and nobody helping at the moment. This is the head of the race, and as they say, as they come into Furmbach again, Kolobnev, the Russian, won a stage in the Tour de France, in Paris-Nice this year, where he slipped the field. And in fact, you may remember, Tom Bonan thought, in fact, that he'd won, and hadn't the Spaniards on the front. Joaquim Rodriguez, Manuel Beltran. Those are the two lead men. And suddenly somebody's started to become a little bit more animated. 4 Spaniards on the front now, and both the Efimkin brothers from Russia up to the fore as well, with Bertolini just sticking his nose in the middle for Italy. And the Spanish have decided that if they're not very careful with 1 lap to go, Rebellin is going to be too far ahead, especially with a strong partner like Kolobnev, and it's in their interest to work together. He's going to be too strong to drag back. Now's the time.
Yes, well, I think certainly is the time, and we can see they're pulling very well together up front. Both of them are working quite well together, and as I said earlier, they went away at a difficult time on that climb, and they went away very powerfully, very impressive, and the Spaniards have realised that, and if they hang around for a bit longer, this gap is going to grow to 30 seconds very quickly, and they have reacted, and it's the time when they have start to take control of this race, because with Oscar Ferreira we've talked about so much. If it comes down to a sprint here, they certainly have a very good chance, and it's the only time they've done anything today. They've had an easy day. They've been following men up in the breakaways that going away, so they've never had to ride after a group or chase a group down. So now is the moment they've got to do it, and they have quite a few riders here all the time, and if they're in good shape, well, they can continue on doing this for onto the sprint really, if they're really in good shape, and they should have been winding themselves for most of the day. As I said, they haven't been doing a lot.
It's Rodriguez on the front, looking over his shoulder, possibly the strongest of them at this particular moment. These two continue up the road, David Rebellin and Alexander Kolobnev. How big is the gap? Oh, it's reasonably big, isn't it? That is a significant gap. The four men on the front for Spain are Rodriguez, Carlos Sastre, Manuel Beltran and Carlos Barredo working together. Just behind, I saw Stefan Schumacher sitting comfortably at that time. There we are. Go, Schumi, go. He is a Stuttgart boy, just down the road from here. In fact, he could probably walk to the circuit if he wanted to. A few kilometers outside, but not that far.
Nice long walk.
Yeah, well, it is a nice long walk, but he certainly can walk a little bit further than Alexander Kolobnev, for instance, or David Rebellin. It's a bit easier for him. This is the final drag up to the finish. 24 seconds is the gap, and they're going to have to work hard to cut that down. There's a long drag past the start-finish line, and then the last plunge down towards the bottom of the Hedvig for the last time, up, around, through the Birkenkopf, and then back down into Fürnbach, where we've just seen. And it's the biggest problem is if they get over that last climb of the day. There's Sastre on the left-hand side. Freire just sitting in there, not looking like he's even breathing. Barredo in the yellow helmet. Beltran at the front. He's had a superb Vuelta a España, and he's bringing that form here. And Valverde on the far right-hand side. Bettini is sitting behind Valverde. And Rebellin now at the head. About 600 meters to go till the end of this lap. Alexander Kolobnev has come here in super shape. Actually, Kolobnev always looks in really, really good shape. He's super lean, super defined, and he did a fabulous ride in that Paris-Nice stage, and now he's doing a fabulous ride here. He's got one of the world's great classics riders with him, David Rebellin. And Rebellin, remember, going head-to-head with Alberto Contador in this year's Paris-Nice at the beginning of the season, and coming off second best in the end, but put up a very stiff fight. This is the peloton then chasing. Valverde on the front now with Beltran behind. Simon Gerrans getting into the mix for the Australians. Then Pipo Pozzato. Samuel Sanchez is up there as well. Thomas Dekker a little bit further back. Looks like he's beginning to struggle a weeny bit. There's the bell taken by Rebellin and Kolobnev, and they are dragging them back. The gap was 24 seconds. It's coming down. The work by the Spanish. Hard work. Alejandro Valverde at the front. It's 15 seconds now. Beltran, Gerrans, the two Efemkins up at the front. Great ride they've had. Fabulous ride. Menchov up there. Schumacher on the far left-hand side. There's one of the South Africans, looks like David George going through. 3 Portuguese riders still in this group. And the first track still here as well. The excursion here. Rebellin, Kolobnev, Valverde, Beltran, Gerrans, Pozzato, Bertolini still up there. There's Alexandra Efimkin, Vladimir Efimkin, Bettini, Freire, Sanchez, Gilbert, Frank Schleck is in here as well. Cadel Evans, Thomas Dekker, Marilio Fischer still there. He's having a good ride. So Uzov, Alan Davis, Leonardo Duque. Oh, this is going to be some finish. This is going to be some final lap, because these two still have a lead over the Spanish-led peloton. It's Manuel Beltran doing the pulling work as hard as he can. He's got Gerrans behind him, then Pozzato. Pfaffenberger still in there for Austria. This is really going to be a good finish. There's Morelio Fischer, the Brazilian, the one with 163 with the green top. What a stellar lineup could test this final, and I think it's going to come down to that last little drag up, Sean.
Well, it's certainly they are closing it down, the Spaniards, but they have lost a lot of riders there. We see Sastre on the front, but Valverde has disappeared very quickly. He gave a very strong pull through the finish area, but peeled off quite quickly, and we see 15 seconds as they went through. One rider on his own, he's going to have a difficulty closing it down anymore, and we can see there's 3 or 4 Italians there very close to the front, and they're just going to play the blocking game, and if there's another moment when there's a lull, it's going to pull away once again.
Marcus Burgard waiting to get across the circuit.
Schleck, is it?
One of the Schlecks. Could be Frank or Andy. Didn't see it in the sunlight there. Kolobnev driving away at the front here. This is the time. Sean had Ferreira down, I think, for a victory today if they get to the line in one piece. I had Pozzato down as a victor today. Could be either of these two if they stay away. Yeah, they come down towards the Hedweg for the last time. The Hardweg, this ramped hill of 13% average gradient, 17% maximum. It's a really great course, this. I've thoroughly enjoyed being able to watch it, the privilege of being here to watch it and commentate on it, and indeed to ride it as well. It's a lovely, lovely course, and I think it's made for a fascinating race, Sean, in all categories, in fact.
Yes, well, it certainly has been a very good course, a testing course, and it's always, the question: are they going to race, and what point do they race? And maybe yesterday's races they just waited a bit too long, but I can understand why, because when we're talking so much about this course being so difficult, it's really going to be difficult in the end, and that was the problem yesterday with the women race and the under-23. They just looked at each other and everybody was waiting for everybody else to attack, and it went very late in the race before they went about that. Where in this race, they started off well before halfway in this one, which is not the normal thing. They usually roll around, and in the last 3 or 4 laps they really get down to racing at 100%, but it hasn't been the case today, and it's certainly taking its toll on a lot of riders. And we see that main group there, there's about 60 riders.
One of the riders has gone down at the back, and difficult to tell who that was. I'm afraid we didn't catch that on the first time around. And it just goes to show that things are really hotting up at the front. Well, look at the way they've dragged them back in the end. Kolobnev and Rebellin gritting his teeth. Not looking very happy, to be honest.
And we can see the Belgians there that were riding on the front. Was that Gilbert? Yes,
that's Gilbert's at the front, and he's got, who's he got with him? I'll tell you, René Mandry is stuck in the middle of that group, and he looks like he's really suffering, the Estonian. Both Estonians here, though.
Yeah, Lukemans has also been there. Yes, the Belgians have they have at least 2-3 riders maybe, and it's interesting to see who Gilbert was riding for. As we see Lukemans coming across now from the Belgians.
Yeah, Lukemans coming, he's joining Fabian Wegman. And Michael Bogart was in there. There's Stefan Schumacher blowing hard in the middle. We've got Samuel Sanchez just with him, and behind him is Oscar Ferreira. Bettini on his right-hand side. Vokla gritting his teeth. Just, you can see him on the right-hand side of the screen behind Paolo Bettini. René Mandry from Estonia really suffering in behind. Gilbert on the left-hand side of your screen, just behind Schumacher here now. The really big guns are here. Filippo Pozzato. Kolobnev still at the front. He's got Wegman with him now. And digging in deep is Michael Bogart, then Elmiger. Rebellin is still there. This is another smaller, interesting group. Wegman now pushing on. And the man right at the back is Leukemans, as you've said, Sean. He's come across. There's Kolobnev swinging back into line. Wegman right at the front. I like Wegman as a rider. He's wears his heart on his sleeve as a rider. Michael Bogart, customary mouth open, giving it everything style. And then Rebellin sitting in the wheel now of Fabian Wegmann, still getting that extra toe. Here's just look at the faces of pain on some of these guys. Tor, Uzoft, Mandry, you can see in the middle behind Oscar Freire. Freire blowing a little bit as well. And Cadel Evans on the wheel of Stefan Schumacher in pain. Thomas Dekker in real pain. Hiding it well is Eric Zabel, sitting just behind Philippe Gilbert there. Now Bogert goes on the attack, and he's really trying to put some hurt on. He's seeing who's behind coming with him. Fabian Wegmann has that one covered. Elmiger having to work to get on there. Rebellin, Leukemans, Kolodnev, Bettini, Frank Schleck, Stefan Schumacher, Cadel Evans, Philippe Gilbert, Pipo Pozzato, Thomas Dekker, and the last man I think is Kroon. We just went up very, very quickly indeed. Oh, this is a really select group now. Massive pressure coming on the front from Michael Bogart, stringing them all out, and they've still got a big climb to go. This is just a little drag up from out of the Herdwig.
And it's hurting big time. We can see 14 riders there about in that front group, but Bettini has, he's made it across, and we see him. He wasn't in that first move there, but we just see him when he made the when he went for his move, and he got across very quickly. But it certainly looks like a dangerous one because they have full United advantage, and as you said, it drags on here.
Yes, indeed. There's Schumacher up in this group. He's made it across. No Freire here. That is interesting. Through comes Cadel Evans. Is that Samuel Sanchez who's made it there? I think it is. Another man we said is an outsider today for
Sanchez. And Sanchez, of course, he's playing the game of sitting on. We can see him here. He's just riding, on the front man's wheel and just staying there and playing, that card. I'm riding for Ferreira. I'm just blocking here, and that's exactly what he's. Well, he's going to the attack now, which is surprising.
That's the curse of the commentator. Samuel Sanchez has a bit of a dig. I think he's just testing some leg. There's Schumacher covering the move. He's got Fabian Wegmann in the break with him. Finally, Bogart and Dekker in a position right up towards the front. Sanchez pulling hard down this section under the underpass. He's a great descender, and this is going to just test a few people to see if they've got the legs to go with him. Round he goes. Oh, look, we've got a long climb still to go yet. This is the long descent as they go under the underpass. They'll hang a hard right and then up that long drag. And Sanchez got himself into a place at the front. Schumacher and Wegmann both up there. Bogart chasing hard with Thomas Dekker in his wheel. And then it looks like Rebellin, Kolodnev. And the man right at the back at the moment, I think, is
Bettini.
Is it Bettini who's got on there?
Yes.
And Schumacher. It's all very, very nervous indeed. Samuel Sanchez peels off to the right-hand side of your screen, left-hand side of the road. Swinging back, seeing who's with him. Everybody looking behind, seeing who Cadel Evans was swinging off to see who was with him, whether Alan Davis had made it up or which other rivals were there. Evans on the wheel of Sanchez. He knows him so well, doesn't he, after the last 3 weeks? He knows what great form he's in. Michael Bogart. Stefan Schumacher. Schumacher wants to be in the right place at the right time all the time. He is so wound up for this race. He's local to Stuttgart. He's in great form. He had showed very good form in the Vuelta. Getting right up there when it came to the sprints, and we know he can get over this sort of course. He says it's like the Amstel Gold Course, and that, of course, he won this year. There is Cadel, right in the middle of the shot. Pipo Pozzato is in here. Martin Elmiger in here on the wheel of Schumacher. And who is going to take it up? That's the big question. If they keep riding like this, other people will come back to them. Freire, they've distanced Freire at the moment. They must be thinking, Sean, that, I mean, he's one of the big favourites. They must be, and Bettini must be very pleased that he's got Freire behind. And and they won't want to let him get back.
No, well, it's surprising really that there's not some of the teams riding here. We see the Dutch team, they have 3 riders. They have Preston Kroon also here with Bogart and Decker, and surprisingly not one of them riding, because it's a perfect condition to be in. With 3 riders up front, you have that advantage. It's also the Italians, we have 2 riders, Posato and Bettini, but you know, this marking game is starting. It's going to play, if they can get organised behind, you know, we could see the group coming back, but for the moment we cannot see the chasing group. It looked like there was no more prepared to take up the chasing, or was left behind up the main group.
This is this last big climb out through the Birkenkopf. Schumacher getting to the front, just upping the pace a little bit, seeing if everybody can stay there. Well, it's the time to go for a hammer on this one, if at all possible. They're all looking at each other now, sitting behind Stefan Schumacher. Philippe Gilbert, Loikemans is in there. This is the chasing group. It's still Manuel Beltran doing work on the front. Oh, what a good job he's been doing. Then Alejandro Valverde right behind him. And then, amazingly, it looks like Bertolini once again. Oh, it's Cunego. And Bertolini just behind him. They're still at the front of the race. The Fimkins have dropped off just a weenie at the moment. Uzov really suffering. Back to the lead group, and Rebelin on the front. Another man who looks like he's suffering. Surely he has to follow orders and work for Bettini or Pozzato. We've got both people in here. When do they start choosing which one's which?
Well, I think we see at this moment it's, you know, Pozzato and Bettini are the protected riders, and Rebelin is just making the tempo here, and that's what you've got to do on the climb. Just make a good tempo that nobody really wants to attack, and you keep the group together. And of course, with Bettini, Pozzato here, if it comes down to the sprint, both of them have a very good chance. Certainly, you know, I think they're maybe the ones with the best chance in a straight-out sprint.
Big dig coming once again from Michael Bogart. Looks like Rebelin is having difficulty responding to that one. Bettini's gone behind him. Stefan Schumacher, very nervy, but following the wheels of Paolo Bettini. Bogart digs in, now Bettini kicks. He's kicked it only. Schumacher's gone with him at the moment. Who is trying to get up onto his wheel? It looks like a Swiss rider from overhead, but let's get a head-on shot. I'm not sure it is. We'll have to see when we get up, but look at the distance back. It's not hugely great. Bettini kicking for home.
Sanchez, Wegman.
Bettini out ahead of the rest. He's got this little bit of a rest of the climb to go. It looks like Schleck, in fact. It's Frank Schleck who has got across, another great classics winner. And Schleck goes, wants to push on a little bit further. And then they've not got rid of
Schumacher, is this?
Yep, Schumacher. They've not got rid of Schumacher at all. At the moment, the rest of them are all beginning to look at each other. These three have got about 10 bike lengths now, and Schleck head down. Bettini in his will. Stefan Schumacher, the winner of Amstel Gold, the local boy, the outgoing, I shouldn't say the outgoing world champion at the moment, because he's got those rainbow bands on his helmet and he could well be taking it again. Frank Schleck. Paolo Bettini, Stefan Schumacher, always trying. Looks like Polomnev again wants to come across the Russian. Difficult to see at that distance, but the blue with the red and white stripes down the side of the jersey. He was really up for attacking today as they run under the underpass, down with this new section of tarmac. The right-hander past the brick wall. Can any of them get back on this? Still a little time. And somebody's kicked again off the front. Bettini once again digging as hard as he possibly can down into this sweeping right-hander, running as wide as he can, almost on the barriers. It's Stefan Schumacher who's trying to chase him down with Frank Schleck right behind. Now's the time to take every risk they possibly can, because the select group behind are not going to let them get away with it if it's all possible. And the big favourites who've missed out on the break so far, unless they get brought back. Oscar Freire, not there. The Spanish, not represented. Eric Zabel not in this group, but he's not going to do anything with Stefan Schumacher up the road. Pozzato is a little bit behind. Bettini doesn't want to give that away too easily, that crown, does he? Oh, look chase coming on really hard. Is that Evans chasing?
Yes, it certainly is Evans, and we see Schleck there, just keeping it going. Very impressive Schleck there, easy on the front there, and prepared to keep it rolling along. As we can see, he has maybe 2-3 bike lengths on Bettini and Schumacher.
This is how it pans out then. Schleck, Bettini, Schumacher, then Evans. And it's pretty uncertain from these shots as to whether it is a Russian or an Italian with Cadel Evans at the moment. These are the rest of whereas how far back is everybody else? Oh, Bettini kicking again on the hill. Oh, another super attack. Now who could go with him this time? It's one after another after another. It's Pozzato. Pippo Pozzato is the other man in that little group. Is it not? It's Kolobnev. My apologies, I told you it was difficult. There we are, Kolobnev. My word, he really wants it today, Kolobnev, doesn't he? CSC rider. And the Russian getting onto the wheel of Bettini. Now Bettini's tried this before, we've seen this before. He's just hanging his head there thinking, now what do I have to do to get rid of these guys? He's gone straight to the front, Kolobnev. Trying to push things on. Should he really be doing that, Sean? Surely Bettini's the one who wants to attack here. Come on, let's work together, says Bettini. He needs to play that card now.
Yes, of course, Bettini has the advantage. He has Pozzato back there, and he's going to try and keep this one going and attack it. And if he stays with this group, he's definitely had a very good chance in the sprint, because he can do that. He can make these sudden attacks, but he recovered very quickly. We see him last year also in that final lap. He went in the attack, I think, with about 5 or 6 Ks out, and still, just had it for the final sprint. And certainly against these guys that he's with, if he comes to the sprint finish, he can still pull it off in the sprint. And the advantage is they get pulled in. He has Pozzato back there, and a perfect position, for the Italian team. Now
this is the group behind, running down now. Not so much chasing them now, but just behind them. Alejandro Valverde, the back David Miller in that group. These are our leading men. Now, wouldn't it be just sweet reward for Cadel Evans for his season? 2nd in the Tour de France, 4th in the Vuelta a España. If he could take the world title, he's going to have a real problem if he gets to the line with Paolo Bettini, though, and Stefan Schumacher. And in fact, any of these riders are going to have a good chance in the sprint against Cadel Evans. Bettini on the back now, trying to urge other guys to work on harder. Bettini from the back forwards, Kolobnev. Then Schumacher and Evans coming back through now, and Frank Schleck. Well, they've got a gap on the others as they're running down in towards the finish. They've still got a little bit of a dig, but they're coming back at them. They are coming back at them. 5K to go then in this men's elite world championship road race. And little Paolo, the man who's worn the rainbow stripes all year and took such a fabulous and emotional victory in the Tour of Lombardy, not 2 weeks after putting on the rainbow jersey, is now at the front of this little group of 5. And the gap is so small now, it's going to come back together with these chasing 8 riders. Unless they start completely messing about. And it looks already as if they're looking at each other. One rider coming off the front of this group to try and bridge the gap. The Spaniards have missed out big time. They've done very little today, Sean, and all of a sudden they've been caught out.
Yes, certainly, they haven't been doing a lot, and they haven't been as strong and as forceful as we've seen them other years in that final laps. And when they take up the pace here, they just disappeared very quickly. But Sanchez, of course, is in that group, which is just behind the group of Bettini here. So he is also one in the sprint, and especially in this uphill sprint, if it comes back together. But the gap for these 5 layers is still 10 seconds, 8 seconds maybe. So it looks like they might hang on out there, but there is a rider coming across there he's halfway across between the chasing group and this leading group of Bettini.
I would assume that is Decker, or is it Kroon? One of the Dutchmen, anyway, is trying to come across. Very difficult to see at this long length of lens at the moment. But he's fighting hard. And again, more people pulling on the front of the following group. Bettini is desperate to get other riders through to work and keep this break going ahead. Come on, he's saying. Well, of course he's saying that. He's a good sprinter. He wants to get there with everybody else. Plunging down into Feuerbach now. There's going to be 3K to go by the time they get to the end of this village. This is really hotting up the men's elite road race with Frank Schleck on the front. Hands on the middle of the bars, giving it everything in time trial style that he can. Behind another group of 8, trying to shut them down. They're not making a huge amount of impression at the moment. There is Sanchez at the back. Gilbert is in here. Leukemans is in here. This is the group just behind. Fabian Wegmann there. Martin Elmiger. That'll be Bogert and Decker, both in this group. And Elmiger sitting in behind Wegmann now, and they're beginning to suffer. Has anybody got the strength? Has anybody got the strength to drag these 5 back? And this is the rest of the Stroll, who's off. The big Norwegian on the front. Pulling. Very difficult to see on that shot because it's right into the sun now. Back at the head of the race there. Schleck. They've still got a significant gap. They're not going to get caught, I don't think. It's going to come down for these 5, Sean.
Yes, it looks like, unless they start to play about, and Schleck is riding very strong, and anytime he goes to the front, he pulls it along at a very strong pace, and he's the one who has to start calculating now, and if he goes in the attack, if Schleck can attack from behind, he's a very dangerous one because he seems to be still a lot of power left.
Rising up now towards the finish line. This is a steady long drag now. Cadel Evans in this group, the Australian, second in the Tour de France, 4th in the Vuelta as Kolobnev, the Russian who won that stage in Paris-Nice, giving it a real go. We saw him in a couple of breaks in the Vuelta, but nothing special, just as a little bit of a dig. They're starting to test each other, come through. Cadel Evans wants Frank Schleck to work with him because he knows that the others have got a good sprint on them. Schumacher looking dangerous. He's just sitting there covering everything at the moment. Bettini desperate to keep hold of his crown. And other riders trying to get across at the moment. Pozzato, I would suspect, is the rider from Italy there, trying to work his way across. This is the group behind. Sanchez still in that group. Frank Schleck comes to the front. He's got Schumacher on his wheel. Is it going to come down to a Schumacher-Bettini sprint here? It looks an awful lot like it.
Well, yes, certainly if they keep on riding, if Schleck keep on pulling on the front, it's certainly going to take it down to a sprint. But it will be interesting to see, will he keep on going here, because he's certainly in the wrong position and doing the wrong thing, because if you keep on pulling on the front, you're going to pay in the sprint, and we can see that he's trying to get Schumacher to come round him, and it's interesting to see who's going to take it up now.
Yeah, I'm not sure Schumacher's going to do anything of the sort at the moment until he wants to kick for home. He's got a sprint on him. He can move away on this sort of terrain as well. They've got to start looking over their shoulders to see who's going to come up at them, because Pozzato, I think, was going at Evans on the left-hand side. Oh, he's just... Oh, not going to let that happen. Schleck on the left-hand side. Evans, it goes through the middle. Now he gives it a dig. Schumacher onto his wheel. He's going to have trouble getting rid of Schumacher on this sort of terrain. Bettini digs in. Kolobnev and Schleck, who's done all that work, is fighting to get under the wheel now of Alexander Kolobnev. It's slowed down on the front once again. That allows Schleck to get back. Is anybody coming up from behind quickly? That's the big question. Kolobnev looks spent to me. He looks as though he's really suffering now. Schumacher looking very, very, very calm indeed. As is Bettini, and they're coming across. It's Gilbert.
It's too late, I don't think. 500 meters, and we can see that gap there. It's certainly 50-60 meters. I don't think there's anybody capable and strong enough to make that gap.
Is the local boy Stefan Schumacher going to leave the circuit and go home just a few kilometers away with the rainbow jersey? He's looking behind him. He's got Paolo Bettini behind him. He doesn't want that. Bettini, a very, very good sprinter, and wants to hang on to that rainbow jersey. Nobody.
And Bettini knows there's danger, man, of course. Schumacher, who is the strongest.
And Gilbert and Rebel in behind. And Kolobnev going. Kolovnev going to try and go for a slightly longer one. Maybe. He's leading it out. He's got it now. He puts his head down. Kolovnev going for a long one. He went against Leonardo Duque this way. Here comes Bettini. And Kolovnev has got a real strong rear-running kick on him. Kolovnev is keeping Bettini at bay, but here comes Bettini around the outside. He's going to hang on to his world stripes. It's Paolo Bettini from Kolovnev. And Frank Schleck absolutely furious with himself. Paolo Bettini will get to wear the rainbow stripes for another year. Well, Alexander Kolovnev, the Russian, made that extremely hard for the Italian. He went for a long one. We'd seen him in the Vuelta against Leonardo Duque go for a long sprint. He knows that's the only way he could try and take something. And I think if we see the photo replay, he gets the silver medal. Kolovnev, oh, what disappointment. He worked so hard. Really worked hard. Establishing that last breakaway. Frank Schleck again, he's another man who worked really hard. Here comes the next group down. We've missed the group completely in the middle. And over the line comes Oscar Freire. Well, there were people who were saying there is no way that on a circuit like this, if it gets to the end in one group, that Ferreira could lose, but it didn't. It didn't get to the end. There's Britain's David Miller on the far right-hand side. Here we go. Kolovnev digging so hard. He made it very, very difficult. Bettini, such a good sprinter though. On the left-hand side of the screen. Schleck beginning to go backwards faster than anybody else. Stefan Schumacher just absolutely giving it everything. Didn't have it in the end. Second victory, back-to-back victories for Paolo Bettini. The Italian will wear the stripes when he goes to the Tour of Lombardy again this year. And in the end, he came round and across the front of Kolovnev. He had a whole bike length. Well, that was a super sprint at the end, Sean, because Kolovnev knew he had to go from a long way out. He made it hard work.
Yes, well, certainly he went to the right time, Kolovnev, and gave it a really good go. But Bettini, we see there coming into the last corner, he was marking Schumacher, and as Kolovnev moved up, he just went for the wheel of Kolovnev and started his sprint at the right timing, but also had the strength there. And we could see in the last meters, Bettini, he did calculated very well, but he also had the power left.
He had a tremendous amount of power left when you think about it. None of those guys are weak. They're all pretty tired. And Paolo Bettini, world champion once again after all that effort in getting here in the first place. There was all sorts of shenanigans surrounding whether Paolo Bettini would even start this race. The UCI and the organisers said he was not going to be welcome right at the very last minute. There's Enrico Carpani, the UCI press officer, just standing next to him, congratulating him. He would not sign the UCI charter in the form that it was presented to him. It had nothing to do with the anti-doping sanctions. It was all about taking your year's salary away. He said, what if there's something that goes wrong with the test? You take away my money? That's what do I live on? Kolovnev going from a long way. The Russian, well, that is a really gallant effort by that man. He tried so hard. Look how far out he went, and Bettini gritting his teeth. Schumacher almost looked like his head's about to explode there. Look at the effort he's putting in. And it shows how hard Kolovnev was going, but how good a sprinter on this sort of finish Paolo Bettini is. He's proved once again in this sort of situation he is the best in the world. Paolo Bettini, world champion. Well, what a finish. And the man will collect himself in a minute. He's an emotional character, and when we see him on stage on the podium again, I'm sure he's thinking about his brother. And his brother here last year was one of the first people to him to congratulate him. And sadly died in a car accident just a few days, literally, after the joy of the family at Paolo's World Championship victory. And Paolo wearing the rainbow jersey to Tour of Lombardy in memory. It was a very hard week for me, says Paolo. Very horrible with all the accusations I've had against me. I didn't know what was happening to me. It seemed to be everybody against me all of a sudden. And I've responded to all those accusations today by winning. It was my goal being here to fight and to show that I am a great rider. Did you feel this morning you had the type of energy to win, is the question? You don't know how it's going to go for the finish. Cycling is a sport that wears you out, and you know you're tired all day. You feel you're tired all day long. And it all comes down to the finish. What have you done in the last lap? It was a hard course, a lot of climbs, and no real rest. I won because of my great Italian team, he says. The squadra did a fabulous job. It was a great strategy, and that's what made the difference against some of the other teams. We showed today we are a great team, the Italian team. Paolo Bettini, 2007 World Road Race Champion, ahead of Alexander Kolobnev, silver medal, and Stefan Schumacher taking bronze. Frank Schleck and Keller Evans rounding out the top 5 who were in that break. Then Rebellin, Samuel Sanchez, and Philippe Gilbert at 6 and 8 seconds respectively. Wegman, Elmiger, Thomas Dekker, Michael Bogart, Bjorn Leukemans, Oscar Freire, the first of the other riders to come in the chasing group at 49 seconds. Not the day for a 4th World Championship for Oscar Freire. He was so motivated for it, and he'd almost built up a little mystique around him. There were a lot of people saying that you saw him out training. He was on a different planet. It was amazing. And actually, to be honest, he was training not with the main body of the Spanish team, just practicing his finishes up this little run here, and not seeming to breathe at all. And there was a hushed, reverent tones as he went past. But in the end, it was Paolo Bettini who showed he really is a great rider in this sort of situation, and takes home the rainbow jersey to his family and in the memory of his brother for another year. We'll take a short break, and we'll be back for the podiums here and the finale of the World Championships in Stuttgart.
My boyfriend was beaten to death.
Say cheese!
I want to buy a gun.
$1,000.
Yeah, I'll take it.
This is too easy.
Somebody shot him with a 9mm automatic.
Fear belongs to weaker people.
Someone doing our job for us, saying, this is how it's done.
Clear the way!
Drop the gun!
The stranger is all you are now. There's no going back.
Jodie Foster, the brave one.
What if your entire business could learn to minimize risks? Well, off the course anyway. Because change happens. Zurich.
The Hybrid Minute, presented by Toyota Hybrid Synergy Drive. A vehicle with this logo is a combination of highly advanced technology. The ignition is powered by an electric motor coupled to a battery. When cruising, the system combines both petrol engine and electric motor. The battery is recharged using the energy usually wasted during deceleration and braking. Among its 4 benefits, let's focus on fuel efficiency.
I drive around the city mainly for work and shopping. This involves constant stopping and running. My Prius intelligently uses the engine and electric motor together and burns less fuel. I don't need to go as often to the pump as for a normal car.
Normally, power has been incompatible with fuel efficiency, but Toyota's hybrid vehicle delivers high acceleration performance. These 4 benefits have appealed to 1 million Toyota hybrid drivers, leading to the reduction of CO2 emissions by 3.5 million tonnes in 10 years. What will your reason be?
Hire, your home appliance supplier.
Welcome back for we await the podium for Paolo Bettini to collect his 2nd World Championship jersey in a row. Wonderful victory against a really, really gallant attempt by Alexander Kolobnev to take a long sprint from about 250 meters uphill. And also from Stefan Schumacher, who was really motivated to take this today, being essentially a Stuttgart boy, but he had to settle for the bronze medal in the end. Frank Schleck taking 4th and Cadel Evans taking 5th. Well, good on Evans in getting there in the first place into that group of 5. Big losers today, the Spanish Samuel Sanchez, the best of the Spaniards, in 7th spot, and the Belgians, Philippe Gilbert, managing 8th spot. But worst placing really for a team that did so much work early on in the race to bring things back together. The Dutch finishing 11th and 12th with Thomas Dekker and Michael Bogart respectively. Welcome back into the box, Emma. And you've been watching this race as we all have, and that was an exciting finish.
It certainly was an exciting finish, and there were points in that race where we thought some of those moves had gone away, and we said, well, come on, they're not going to bring them back, and then it all came down to that finish, and that was absolutely nail-biting. Everybody could see each other in the last few kilometres. That group of 5, they could see them, and it was pretty nerve-wracking. I wouldn't like to have been out there.
But it just showed how strong that group of 5 was, because Frank Schleck did an awful lot of work on the front. Bettini attacking a couple of times, keeping the gap going. He did the same sort of thing last year.
Bettini just looked really strong. You could see he wanted it. You could see he wants to retain his world title, and that's exactly what he's done.
Well, a huge round of applause down opposite the podium for Stefan Schumacher as he came out, the bronze medalist, the German from just down the road. And he's had time to collect himself. Alexander Kolobnev on the left-hand side onto the screen. The Russian who did so much to make sure that group of 5 stayed away from the chasing riders, and dispatching some very, very class men in the process. Pipo Pozzato and Samuel Sanchez, Thomas Dekker, Michael Bogart, Philippe Gilbert, showing he really is a talent. Look out for him a little bit more in the future. He always looks absolutely bang on form. Always looks very strong and in great condition, Kolobnev. But today is all about the Italian Paolo Bettini and the Italian team, and they were absolutely mighty. Bertolini and Tozzato doing a fabulous job. Stefan Schumacher, bronze medal here. And there'll be more opportunities for the German. It looked pretty cool up until the last 200 meters or so. Alexander Kolomev, who really did a fantastic ride, CSC rider, and riding from Russia, of course, his home nation, but today belongs to this man. Pat McQuaid, president of the UCI, presenting the medal and putting the jersey on, and just the briefest of acknowledgements between the two. It's a frosty atmosphere, but Bettini having the say today.